The first thing I saw wasn't my father. It was the banner, 20 feet long. Bright red letters stretched across the garage like some kind of carnival attraction. Goodbye, Freeloader. Keep out forever. For a second, I honestly wondered if I'd driven to the wrong house. Then I saw my mother's flower pots. My old basketball hoop. The porch swing Grandpa built before he passed away. No, this was home. Or at least, it used to be. The backyard erupted in laughter before I'd even turned off my engine. My father stood beside the grill with a beer in one hand and a pair of barbecue tongs in the other. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't angry. He was smiling. A proud, satisfied smile. "Well," he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "looks like our guest of honor finally showed up." More laughter. I hadn't been invited. I'd only come because Mom texted that I still had a few boxes in the garage and should pick them up before the locks were changed. Apparently, she'd forgotten to mention the party. Or maybe she wasn't allowed to. Before I could even open my door, my Uncle Rick staggered across the driveway, already drunk. "There she is," he slurred, pointing his beer bottle at me. "The 30-year-old charity case." Everyone looked. Every cousin, every neighbor. Even little kids stopped running through the sprinklers. "You know what?" Uncle Rick yelled. "Most people move out by 25. She made it to 30 before finally getting kicked out." A wave of laughter rolled through the crowd. Then my younger sister Amber walked over carrying a paper plate. She looked me dead in the eye. "Oh, wait." She picked up a hot dog. "You'll probably need one for the road." She tossed it. The hot dog bounced off my windshield before sliding down the glass, leaving mustard and ketchup smeared across it. The children burst into giggles. "Ending charity meal," Amber laughed. Even Dad chuckled. I looked toward my mother. She stood near the patio table. Her eyes met mine for only a second. Then she looked away. That hurt more than everything else combined. Nobody defended me. Nobody said it had gone too far. I quietly stepped out of my car, walked to the garage, picked up the 2 storage boxes that had my name written on them. Before leaving, I took out my phone. One picture of the banner, another of the crowd laughing, one more of the hot dog sliding down my windshield while my uncle pointed at me. Dad noticed. "What are you doing?" I simply answered, making sure I remember today exactly as it happened. He laughed again. "Go ahead. Nobody's going to believe you." I closed my trunk, got into my car, and drove away. They thought the story ended there. They couldn't have been more wrong. 2 weeks earlier, I'd agreed to move out. Not because I was lazy, not because I refused to work, because I'd spent the last 3 years taking care of my mother after her stroke. When everyone else disappeared, I stayed. I drove her to therapy, cooked every meal, managed her medications, cleaned the house, helped her relearn simple things she'd once done without thinking. Dad always told people he was holding the family together. The truth? He spent most evenings at the local sports bar. Amber posted inspirational quotes online, while visiting Mom once every few weeks for pictures she could upload to social media. I never complained. Mom needed someone. That was enough for me. Eventually, her health improved. She became more independent. That's when Dad suddenly announced it was time for me to start my own life. It sounded reasonable, until he started telling relatives I'd been living rent-free while refusing to grow up. Nobody asked why I'd stayed. Nobody asked who had been caring for Mom. Dad controlled the story, and everyone believed him. What none of them knew was that I'd quietly documented everything over those 3 years. Every medical appointment, every prescription pickup, every payment, every text asking me to rush home because Dad couldn't deal with it. I never imagined I'd need any of it, but I kept it anyway. Sometimes the truth deserves a paper trail. After the barbecue, my phone exploded. Dozens of messages. Most weren't apologies. They were jokes, memes, photos of the banner. Someone had uploaded a video of Uncle Rick yelling at me. The caption read, "Family finally cuts off professional freeloader." Thousands of views, hundreds of laughing emojis. I didn't respond. Instead, I downloaded every copy I could find. Remember that detail. It matters later. 3 days later, Mom called. She sounded exhausted. "I didn't know about the banner," she whispered. I believed her, but belief didn't erase what happened. I should have stopped it. "Yes," I answered quietly. She cried. It was the first time anyone had admitted I deserved better. The following week, Dad made another mistake. He gave an interview to the local community newsletter. The article praised him for finally encouraging his dependent adult daughter to become responsible. He even claimed I'd contributed nothing while living under his roof. Nothing. That single word changed everything. Because it wasn't just cruel. It was provably false. A nonprofit that supported family caregivers had nominated me months earlier without my knowledge. One of Mom's physical therapists submitted my name after watching me care for her year after year. The organization asked if they could share my story during National Family Caregivers Week. I said yes, not to embarrass my family, to honor people who sacrifice quietly every day. They requested photos, documents, medical timelines. I had all of it, every receipt, every appointment log, every calendar, even text messages from Dad begging me to leave work early because Mom had fallen. The nonprofit published everything, with Mom's written permission. Within days, the story spread across local news. The headlines weren't about a freeloader. They were about an unpaid caregiver who had devoted 3 years of her life to helping her mother recover. People quickly noticed something else. The dates matched the barbecue video. The same daughter being mocked as lazy had been sacrificing her own career to keep her family together. Public opinion flipped almost overnight. Then someone recognized Uncle Rick. Then someone recognized Dad. Then someone found the banner. That was when everything changed. Sponsors quietly withdrew from Dad's small contracting business after clients began asking uncomfortable questions. Neighbors who'd laughed at the barbecue suddenly avoided eye contact. Church members stopped congratulating him for finally standing up to me. Instead, they asked why he'd humiliated the daughter who had cared for his wife. Amber's employer wasn't thrilled that one of their staff members had appeared in a viral video throwing food at her sister while children laughed. She was called into a meeting. Actions have consequences. Then the calls started. Dad first. I think people misunderstood. I didn't answer. Amber texted. It was just a joke. No response. Uncle Rick actually blamed alcohol. Still nothing. Finally, Mom called again. They want to apologize. I know. Will you come over? I looked at the old family photos stacked beside my couch. Some memories deserved protecting. Others deserved leaving behind. I don't think that's a good idea. She understood. Months later, the nonprofit invited me to speak at a caregiver appreciation event. Standing on that stage, I didn't mention the banner. I didn't mention the barbecue. I didn't mention the hot dog. I spoke about invisible work, about daughters, about sons, about spouses who quietly put their dreams on hold because someone they loved needed them. When I finished, the audience stood and applauded, not because I'd exposed anyone, because they'd finally seen the truth. Later that evening, I received one last message from Dad. I'm sorry. No excuses, no blame, just 2 words. I stared at the screen for a long time before setting the phone down. Forgiveness and reconciliation aren't always the same thing. I forgave him, eventually, but I never moved back. I built a new life, a better one. I found work that valued my compassion. I surrounded myself with people who never mistook kindness for weakness. And every now and then, when I think about that banner hanging over the garage, I realize something. They believed they were sending away a burden. Instead, they pushed away the one person who had quietly been carrying the family all along. 2 weeks after they celebrated my departure, they started pleading. Not because they suddenly loved me, because the truth had finally caught up with them. Sometimes revenge isn't shouting. Sometimes it isn't lawsuits. Sometimes it isn't humiliation. Sometimes revenge is simply allowing the truth to arrive, right on time. And when it does, it speaks louder than anger ever could. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea who they were dealing with? Tell me your story in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more revenge stories every week.